So today's webinar will be Winning the Talent Battle, the art of closing the top talents. Okay, so the discussion will be India has been experiencing a revolution when it comes to technology adoption. The demand for technology solutions is skyrocketing, but the talent required to develop such solutions is scarce. So, as companies fight the ultimate battle to gain supremacy, the lack of talent is a huge problem for scaling up. So today we will discuss how to close the top talent available and the different strategies which companies can have to get the best team onboarded. For today, our speaker is me. So I am Sarbojit. I am one of the co-founders of Instahyre, and I lead the business and the customer success teams at Instahyre. And with us, we have Luan. So Luan is a talent veteran who has helped build and scale several successful technology startups and companies in Silicon Valley. He spent 7 years spearheading the global talent growth strategies. So he has written articles on war for talent and has been featured in several publications, including the Forbes, the Wall Street Journal, the Guardian, and San Francisco Business Times, especially on the art and science of recruiting. Right. So Luan, hi Luan, how are you doing?
I'm well. Hi, hello everyone on the phone land. Thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate everyone taking the opportunity and the time to have the discussion today.
Great. So Luan, can you just brief me about Harness, and like people want to know about Harness and your role there. So you can just brief me about Harness and your role.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for the introduction. So just to start off, I'm no stranger to the Bangalore market. I've been coming here since 2001. I actually built out the Informatica campus here originally in 2001, and has done it again. I have done it again with AppDynamics, which was the firm that I was recently with, and currently at Harness. Now, Harness was formed by Jyoti Bansal, who founded AppDynamics after we sold the company to Cisco for $3.7 billion. This is a new venture. We started our Bangalore office roughly about 6 months ago, growing really, really fast. And what we do is we're in the continuous delivery platform technology. So what it does is that it allows developers to be able to push out a lot of the deployments or features a lot faster. So getting the product to market a lot faster for a lot of companies. So that's what we do.
Great, Luan. So let us start with the agenda for today. Okay, thank you for your introduction, and let's start for the agenda for today. So the agenda for today is the battle for talent. Then we will go on to the supply and demand gap. We will understand the scenario, and we will discuss methods of how to close the best talent in the market. Right. So let us start for the battle for talent. So we have to go back to understand what happened in technology in India. So on July 24, 1991, Dr. Manmohan Singh, the then finance minister of India, got India into an era of liberalization. So that day was historic for many reasons. One of the major reasons was it helped companies from abroad to come to India, set up their businesses here. So that saw a huge surge in the IT sector, which was powered by the likes of Infosys, TCS, Wipro, and many others, which became the fastest growing business in the world. Now, the problem was the IT industry required people with basic skill sets whom they could train in technologies used within the organization. But how does one find it? So these startups, they witnessed another revolution, which is the number of engineering graduates growing up. So there were institutions which were providing IT skills, which grew at a breakneck speed. So what this helped is that there was a huge amount of IT talent in the market, and then the world moved on. So the world moved on with advanced technologies like big data, artificial intelligence, cloud computing, machine learning, and they became mainstream skill sets. So the demand for the skill sets from the IT industry has been going up once and for all. And the problem was that how do we get the best talent to work on this and to scale our companies up, right? In the last decade, India saw a very interesting phenomenon happen. It was the rise of the startups. So the rise of the startups in India, we saw entrepreneurs which they were building new ventures and scaling them up to becoming multi-billion dollar businesses. Companies like Flipkart, Ola, Oyo, and many others came to India and they started operating out of India, went abroad and made businesses there also. So from that, India has become the fastest growing startup ecosystem in the world, where the fight for talent is extreme. Now the recruitment market has become candidate driven, and there was shortage of skilled talent in the technology space. We can see the factors which were working here were the external funding, the entry of the global technology firms, the VC funding which grew, and there was a big demand and supply mismatch for talent. So, as like 51% of the Indian employers have reported they have severe difficulties in filling up job vacancies due to talent shortages. So, having said that, let us see how we can explain this talent crisis, right? So, as we see, take for example, data science. So, data science is the fastest growing skill set in India. In a couple of years, there will be around 2 lakh people who will be having data sciences degree, but they will not be finding jobs. So similarly, other areas like AI and cybersecurity will have been a huge growth area, but there are not very talented people to fill their positions. So the lack of talent has given rise to race for the top talent, which are scarce. Right. Now let us see how it will unfold. The salaries of the top talent has risen from 25%, 35% the last 1.5 years. There has been around 3.5 million unfulfilled cybersecurity jobs. By 2021, there will be more. So there will be on 2022, there will be around 1.8 million cybersecurity engineers. Oh, there will be a shortage of them. So next, let us find out. So first problem we have discussed is the gap for the talent people, and then the next gap which we will be discussing is the scenario, the conversion ratio. Now let us look at this. Now the pain is that when you get a top talent, but you cannot convert them to your employees. So let us understand some facts about the actual scenario. The top candidates are available as active in the market for around 10 to 12 days before they get hired or get a confirmed offer, right? Now, when we see how the application process works, the application to interviews flow will be around 12%. Now, let us see how the interviews to offers process works. So, this means that out of 100 people, only 12 people will appear for the interviews, and out of that, only 2 will get offers. So on an average, the efficiency of the recruitment funnel will be less than 1%. Right now, the recruiters and talent scout are under tremendous pressure to source and convert top talent. So in this session, we will understand and help you to close the top technology talent. So we'll go to the next slide, which is how do you close the best talent? So the first thing is always be recruiting. The candidate search should not start on the day you need someone, and it should be a continuous process. So how can you do it? You can start building a platform. So when you build a network, it helps to connect to people and get the word out that you're looking for top talent. Right? The search is always on, and whenever you find them, engage with them. So the thing is like always be recruiting. So Luan, we have a question for you. Do you think ABR will be crucial in this candidate-driven job scenario?
Absolutely. So I can share with you kind of our way of life when it comes to always be recruiting, if you will. So one of the things that we believe in at Harness is always establishing what we called a quote unquote live candidate database, meaning that these are candidates who might not be looking, or you might not have a job for them at the current moment. But what you do is you nurture this talent in your pool. And my rule of thumb is for every job that you have, you always should have at least 3 top available talent that you can tap into so that you can actually move the process along a lot quicker in this job market or the war for talent, if you will. So having that is very important. Even at AppDynamics, we deployed a marketing tool called Outreach, where we actually would put all of the, if you will, candidates who might not be ready at the moment to that platform, but we nurture them and we actually ping them every quarter or so, just to touch base with them. So that is your live candidate database, if you will. But at the same time, always leveraging your employee referral program, leveraging your network of contacts to get referrals. And just like you said, always be recruiting.
Great. So let us move to the second part, which we think is one of the most important factors for tapping top talent. So the competitive advantage. So we have to find out your competitive advantage and pitch that. So are you willing to pay more than others? Do you offer more equity? Do you have better benefits? Or do you have more responsibility? So find out what your company does the best and use it in all your pitches. This is the most important aspect of hiring exceptional talent. So I have attached an example for Dan Gellert. He's the CEO and co-founder of GateGuru, which has been acquired by TripAdvisor, who tells us how to pitch their competitive advantage. So for Dan, he went on to the large New York startups and found out that GateGuru will not be competitive enough to give them the salaries which they're receiving. Okay, for the iOS development, pay is not an advantage, he said. So salary isn't the end all though. Then Geller realized that his startup's competitive advantage is to offer them lead roles. So he pitched it this way, that you can be a cog in the wheel at these large startups, okay, as the seventh or eighth guy on the iOS development thing, and all you need to is fix bugs. So he said, then you can come to GateGuru and become the guy on iOS development. So that gave the excitement to people, and people got excited and came on board. So the thing is like, for question for you, Luan. So what is the one thing, the USP of Harness you pitch to your candidates, and how do you go about it?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think for us, it's not so much on the technology, but really is how we cater to our potential employees' career progression. Right. So in I guess the competitive advantage is the fact that, number one, we have a proven CEO and founder of a company who has led a company to a very successful exit of $3.7 billion, right? So that's a one advantage that we always tell all of our potential candidates, that you're going to be with someone who actually has done this, proven, who knows how to do it right. And this time around, we're going a lot faster. But the second thing that we actually touch on, a lot of the time, is the career progression, right? How do one actually progress with our organization through the years? So one of the things that we actually offer is what we call internal mobility.
Okay.
What is that? We actually offer our employees here in Bangalore, for example, the opportunity to eventually toss a hat in a ring and say, hey, you know what? After 18 months or 2 years here in Bangalore, I would like to work and experience Silicon Valley and work in Silicon Valley. That is something that we actually promote, embrace, and actually execute on. And vice versa. We also allow our US employees who would like to perhaps return home here, that they have the option to actually work in Bangalore at some point as well.
That is a great offer. So how many have you converted, like from Bangalore to US office? So in the recent past?
So we are very early stage at the moment. Okay. So that hasn't happened yet, but that's something that we actually going to be promoting quite a bit, right? If you think about it, if you don't recruit internally, your to other teams, other groups within the organization, they will be recruited out of the firm. So we always believe in recruiting internally as well.
Great. And in the other firms which you have worked, so how are they different? Like the USPs of other firms, how did you pitch it? So
I would say that the internal mobility usually with other firms means within the same region, like the US or the internal US team, versus a international move, right? Okay. So for us, it goes beyond the regional. For us, it goes onto the global front, which is someone here can move to Silicon Valley and vice versa.
Okay, great. So it was similar for App Dynamics also, or like it was different in App Dynamics or SnapLogic or SuccessFactors, I guess?
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same. I think initially there's a lot of internal mobility within the regional uh,
Mm-hmm.
teams,
Mm-hmm.
but the latest part of my career, I started to see people start tossing their hat in the ring for an opportunity to move somewhere else globally.
Okay. Yeah. So, Luan, I had questions from other all the recruiters which are watching this. So they're asking that. So you have been a venture capitalist also, and you worked with other startups. So what are the other USPs which they can pitch for smaller startups, which they can have talent from the big ones?
Okay. I would say is the art of telling your story. And the story, what I mean by that is there are three parts of your story. Your
Okay.
technology story,
Mm-hmm.
what does your product or technology address, and
Okay.
why is it important, right? It is very crucial for a lot of, for example, if we're hiring developers, they need to understand the emotional attachment to the product or the
Mm-hmm.
technology they're going to be developing, right? For example, at AppDynamics,
Mm-hmm.
what we used to pitch it is the fact that it's a B2B solution that hundreds and thousands of customers will be touching a product,
Mm-hmm.
right? Harness is going to be the same way. It's a B2B play. A lot of customers are going to be leveraging our product to be able to push out a lot of deployments and features, right, to their customers
Mm-hmm.
without having to break anything in between. But the second story is telling the story about the market. How big is your market opportunity? Now that you have your
Okay.
product, but how
Mm-hmm.
big is that market, right? Is it going to be a $1 billion market? Is it going to be a $10 billion market or beyond, right? Because that will sustain the growth of the company, right? And the last piece is about your company or your people story. Like,
Mm-hmm.
lead with your culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
What should people be expecting in a day in the life as an employee at Harness, for
Mm-hmm.
example, right? That is going to be a very crucial storytelling, right? And again, three parts to that storytelling: your product or technology, the market that is addressing, and also the company people story.
Okay, that is a great way to put it. Yeah. So let us move to the third part, which is involving the team. So we have seen that there are multiple advantages in involving your team during the recruitment process. Basically, it helps the candidate to find out, so if it is a good fit for the company, the employees can see if this guy is a good fit for us. Okay, it also helps the candidate and the employees feel valued, so because they feel they are part of a bigger picture. Okay, then many companies have embraced this collaborative hiring, where we have an example where Heineken took it to the next level. So let me narrate the Heineken story in short. So Heineken wanted to hire one guy for the marketing department. So what they did, they started shortlisting candidates. So after shortlisting, they were invited to Amsterdam for the interview process. So this kind of interview is like a lot weirder than the normal interviews, yeah. And then it had three stages. So the kickoff stage, as I told, the boss had to lead the interview to the meeting room by holding their hands on the entire way, right? The second thing was medical assistance. So the boss will be blacking out in the middle of the meeting, and he blacks out, and there will be people who will be helping the boss. The third thing is the fire drill. So the firefighters are called to rescue a stranded Heineken employee from the roof after a fire alert. So this entire process was filmed, and it was shown to the jury, the team for the marketing department, who was to select the best candidate. So the best candidate was voted, and he was brought to the Juventus Stadium and was shown the entire footage, the entire interview process on the giant screen, and awarded the job. So, Luan, so the thing is, like, I have a question for you. So, why do you think involving the team helps in increasing the chances of candidates to join?
Sure. I think it's very important to enlist the team from the
Mm-hmm.
very beginning of the process to be involved with any candidate, right? Number one, what you're doing is you're really showcasing the team that the candidate will be working with on a day-to-day basis if he or she were to join your team,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's very, very important. But one thing that I do want to, a unique thing that we do at Harness is every candidate comes through our
Mm-hmm.
process. We'll be talking to uh, one or two of our co-founders. Rishi Singh, who is actually our co-founder and CTO of the company, runs all of our engineering, R&D function. But also, Jyoti Bansal is available to talk to anyone who comes through to really understand his vision direction as to why Harness was formed and kind of the direction where we're going next. So again, involving the team earlier on is important because I think in terms of transparency, the candidate gets to see almost everyone they're going to be working with on the team and the different personalities, but also the challenges the team is facing and how they can contribute to solve those challenges.
So that also helps you to become like a friendly employee brand, like a company which has a brand. Yes?
Absolutely. But I think it's important, right? And important to just like, before you buy anything, you want to make sure that you've done your homework and your research, that you know the product ultimately at the end of the day for you to make the decision. And that's the same process that we offer.
Perfect. That is perfect. So any tips for our viewers who are there on our platform as of now? So how can they involve their teams and become winners in their journey of talent acquisition?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we often do is listening to the whole story of a candidate, right? Like you said earlier, money might not be the only motivator for people to move. So really understanding what motivates someone to actually make the change in his or her current situation. And it's important to communicate that with, number one, the hiring managers, right, and get the hiring managers involved with that process immediately. Understanding the motivators is the best way to eventually close a candidate at the end of the process, right? If you involve the team, you educate them on what candidates are looking for, and ask the team to really go into a deeper dive into some of those motivators and how we could offer as a company to the new candidate. We can get that win at the end.
Super. Great advice, Luan. So let's move to the next part, which is the live events. So live events, like Atlassian came up with this interesting live event. So before that, live events are the new age tools to connect to great talent and meet winners. So here we have an example from Atlassian. They have went to like 4 cities for a bus tour to find the top tech talent. The message of the campaign was very attractive and interesting, and they pulled in a lot of very talented people. So they told that Europe's got a surplus of geeks, we have got a surplus of job opportunities. So let's come in and make a match made in heaven. Right. So here I have attached a schedule for the bus recruitment, Atlassian recruitment bus schedule. Okay, for the talented Java and the JavaScript developers which they were hiring for. So how do you think like the importance of the live events comes from the fact that your present team interacts with the participants? So this way the participant becomes aware of your culture, your technology, and most importantly, your people. So Luan, have you seen similar campaigns in Harness or your past companies?
Yeah, absolutely. I think having live campaigns is always a great way to introduce candidates into your culture, into your company. For example, one of the things that we have done in the past is, number one, to have what we call an interview day, where we invite a group of candidates to our office, and within about a half a day, right, they get to meet almost everyone involved in the interview process, but at the same time, they get to actually spend time. And usually this is done sometimes on a weekend, so people are not rushed because of having to take time off from work or rushing from work to meet the interview. On a weekend, half an hour on a weekend, they actually have the time to really get to understand the company, the people, the culture as well. But for other things that we have done, open houses is a good way to really get candidates to come in and actually try and buy, if you will, right? The term try and buy, take a look around, meet some of the people that eventually that you might be working with. But I think probably the most unconventional event that we have done in my career at least, which we implemented in a couple of places, is what we call peer coding. I don't know if you heard of that term before, but peer coding is actually having a candidate sit down with at least one or two other, say, engineers on the team that they're interviewing for, and together 2 or 3 people at the same time do a coding on a real life feature that we're working on at the company to really introduce candidates into what they're going to be working on in real life, right? So it's not hypothetical. This is actually what some of the features are working on that they also will get to work on. I think that, to me, is probably the most effective way, because candidates get to see what they're going to be working on in real life.
Okay. So do you think this is the future of connecting with candidates, or most such events will be the future of connecting with candidates, right?
I think so. I think there's something to be said about, giving the candidates the opportunity to actually see and feel and get a feel for what the environment would be and what the work would be, right? I mean, again, I'm going to go back to, before you buy something, you want to make sure that you've done all your homework and research for you to be confident about buying that product in the same way that we are approaching our recruiting strategies.
Great. So, Luan, let's move to the most important factor which we have discussed, is the candidate delight. So we have seen that we have done a little research on this, and we found out that you need to discuss compensation and benefits upfront. We have seen that research shows that 76% of the candidates are attracted by good pay. You have to be very punctual, attentive, and always brief about the current role. So we have seen that 45% of the candidates, they are attracted by work environment and meaningful work. Right, reduce stat and communicate. So when you find your winner, you do not have to waste time and just close the deal as soon as possible, right? So we have seen that top software engineers land a job within 10 days of job search. And the last thing is thoughtful and personalized emails. As you have already said, personalization makes a difference. The human brain rejects redundant and generic information, so be unique. So that is the thing which we want to say, that a great candidate experience gives you the best closure. Right now, we have a question for you, Luan. So I think closing is the most painful part of the process, right? So how does Garnes go about the closure process?
Yeah, this is a really good question. In fact, this is something that's very near and dear to my heart. It goes back to really laying the foundation when you first pick up the phone and call a candidate, right? Having your own internal process, recruiting process, streamlined. What I mean by that is, for example, at Harness, one of the first part of closing is pre-closing, like you said, right? Okay. If you pre-close a candidate, you really wouldn't have to close that person at the end of the day. Now, we are very religious about our process at Harness. For example, the minute we get on a call with someone, we do talk about numbers immediately. We have to make sure that whatever the candidate is looking for is something that we can accommodate. If we cannot, we're going to be very upfront at the beginning, and hopefully we'll work something out, right? That we can come in the middle somewhere. But at the same time, it goes beyond just the compensation part. We also get a commitment level up from the very beginning of the process, meaning we educate a candidate on how our process works. For example, if you were my candidate, how our conversation will go. Okay, so the process here is we're going to get your resume over to our hiring manager. I'm sure we're going to do a phone screen, perhaps two, depending on if the person's in the US or here in Bangalore. It might be one or two upfront. And then if you were to pass that phone screening, you still like us, then we're going to have more interviews or in-person interview. And then we do, the minute we get that done, we can get back to you within about 24 to 48 hours with an answer. We're going to put an offer in your hand within, the same day, if not at the latest the next day. But at the same time, we're going to ask for the same courtesy. Okay. Once an offer has been extended to you, can you also take 24 hours that we did to get back to you for you to get back to us? So now you're shortening the process, right? You're streamlining it. You're moving the process along, and you get the candidate to actually buy into your process. At any given point, the candidate is saying, you know what? Actually, I'm not going to make a move until 2 months later. That's okay. Now, that person automatically goes into, remember what I earlier in the call I said, your live candidate database. That becomes your live candidate in your database. And then you just bring that person towards the end of his or her 60-day timing, right? Because there's no point to interview someone today when he or she cannot make a decision until 2 months later, 60 days later. You just have to kind of know when to engage and put the person in the process. Now it comes back to the closing part of it. One, a candidate's commitment level is up. It's a lot easier to close a candidate, but also always look for cues and responsiveness. If there's something that is not right, you don't feel it's right, pick up the phone, ask the direct questions, re-engage, and re-level set, right, to get that candidate back on track so that you can close. So no surprises at the end. I hope that helps.
Yeah, that helps. So these are some insights on the techniques which are used in Harness and other Silicon Valley firms, right? So we had a question from the audience also. Give us some insights on the techniques and the used in Harness and other Silicon Valley firms. So anything you want to add on this?
I'm sorry?
So we had questions. Give us some insights on the techniques which are used in Harness and other Silicon Valley firms. So you want to add anything on this, or like this is what they can do for the re-engaging the candidates, what you said?
Yeah, I would go back to re-emphasize on the fact that you make sure you have your internal process ironed out. You have to really have that process. You have to believe in that process, and then you execute on that process, right? You can't have 2 or 3 different processes in the same company. You have to have one track that you're working on that everyone is on to ensure to close at the end of the process. Again, it goes back to how many days should it take to close a candidate? You said it yourself that most candidates on the market today, they gone in 10 days.
Yes.
Right? How do you work your process to fit that time frame so that after 10 days, your chances of winning is a lot faster? If you work your process and your process is 14 days, then you know something is not right, because candidates are only available within the first 10 days of their search. You have to tailor fit that. So going back to our process, right? If we engage someone, we let's just assume that we get through the interview process within the first week, right? We get back to them within 24 to 48 hours. And then we ask them to give us an answer within 24 to 48 hours, a day to 2. Then that fits into the 10-day timing that you mentioned. So always work the math backwards and make sure that you maximize on getting those candidates in the first 10 days.
Super. So let's start a small Q&A session with you. So we have got a lot of recruiters, a lot of HR heads asking questions. So we have compiled a set of questions for you. So let's start with the first one. So we have seen in the recent years that regional and global lines are getting blurred. So now companies are globalizing, accessing talent across geographies. So what are the challenges you have faced while scaling up your organization across the geographies, different geographies?
Yeah, so for us, the challenges that we have seen currently is definitely in different regions. The time difference is a challenge, right? You can't expect someone to be up at 2 a.m. to take a call because someone in the US was available, and vice versa. So that's a big challenge. So what we've done is we set up standing meetings where people actually would be able to log on anywhere from the world. For example, at Harness, we do an all hands meeting every other Mondays, every 2 weeks. We have all hands meeting where we picked a time where everyone actually could able to join to get an update on the organization and what's going on. But I think it's a really a philosophy the company has to have, and also it's a discipline, right? That at that certain time everybody calls in. So I think that is a discipline that the company has to instill in people.
Super. So that's good. The discipline is the most important thing you say, right?
Yep,
So
absolutely.
yeah, yeah. Next part is the on-demand economy is on the rise, and we have seen in the recent past that there is an increase in diverse and flexible opportunities, right? So, what are your thoughts about this, commonly known as the gig economy, and does it hold significance in the tech industry? And like, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I think this has been a huge debate in Silicon Valley in terms of having a very distributed workforce, right? And how does this work? A study actually done by IBM recently came out saying that the distributed workforce has been working out very, very well for a lot of major companies. Why they found that a lot of employees are more productive uh, when having a more distributed workforce, because people can actually, if they were able to get up and be able to work from their own home or at a coffee shop nearby, they actually cut down the commute time to get into the office. Number one. Number two, there are always set times when there are a meeting or a sync up or a scrum quick catch up that people just show up, whether in person or online or via Hangout. Uh, it is very productive that way. And I do see that eventually the entire tech industry will be moving to that. Um, and that way is originally you start out with a smaller team that's mainly intact, and then eventually you need to branch out and you get the best talent wherever you can get them, right, into the company.
So this is the next big thing in coming into the picture, right? The gig economy.
Yeah. So that's kind of the direction that a lot of companies are moving into in Silicon Valley. I know of a company that is highly distributed to the fact that there isn't even an office that anyone can go to. Everybody works from their home.
Great. So, one next question. As I understand, you have been instrumental in changing and hiring practice at App Dynamics. So, I've read an article on Wall Street. So, it told about how you converted the 45-day cycle to a 17-day cycle, increasing the efficiency like 3x, 4x times. So, what are the key parameters you focus right now while designing and executing a hiring plan? So, can you just elaborate on this?
Yeah. So to answer that question, let me give you some background on when I first started at App Dynamics. I came in when the company was about 150 employees with no recruiting infrastructure or foundation, no real really process. Right, so I had to go in and do entire thing, and to begin with that, I think some of the key parameters, which the article that you that I was interviewed, that you read, was all about understanding and aligning your hiring goals to the business goals. Right, let me give you a good example. If your hiring goal calls for 10 engineers to produce a certain number of features for your next release, if you don't have 10 engineers, you wouldn't be able to get that product to your customers' hands on time. Same thing, if we have to hire 10 sales individuals to get a number of revenue for the company, if you don't have 10 people hired, you won't get that revenue for the company, right? As a co-founder of a company, you understand that, I'm sure. So with that said, what we've done is we took the headcount plan and we run it just like we would in a sales organization. Every recruiter is responsible for a number of hires on a monthly, quarterly, and yearly basis, right? So everybody gets into the office, knows what they need to do every single day to get to their own hiring plan. And each individual hiring plan adds up to the overall hiring plan of the company. Right, and that's moving the process and the business along, and not just the recruiting business, but the company's business as a whole. Right, so that's one key parameters that we built. The second which I touched on, is having an internal process, recruiting process that you can believe in, can execute against, and get your candidates commit to, right? That's why we were able to reduce the timing on 45 days significantly down, because we were sticking to our process. And even beyond that, that interview that I did with the Wall Street Journal, we even reduced that number of days down further as we continue to grow in our evolution at AppDynamics.
Okay. So if I correctly understand, the first parameter will be a distributed workforce management, which you did. So each recruiter will be responsible for certain areas. And the second is making a process which can be leveraged upon different parameters, right?
That's correct. And then just to touch on what you said is really, if you're running a recruiting team, it's important to actually have segments, or what I call division of labor, if you will. So you have a team running all of engineering hiring, sales hiring, customer success hiring, to G&A, general administration hiring. And within those groups, everyone is responsible for a number that they should hit on a monthly, quarterly, and yearly basis.
That is great. So let's move on to the next question. So you have worked with many of these, let's just companies which are scaled up and become billion-dollar companies, made IPOs and exits. So how do you think technology has been shaping the talent landscape, and how does the future look like? Like, what is the future in recruitment for you?
Yep. I've been in the business for a number of years now. I would say that at the beginning of my career, it was really tough. Because technology wasn't really available in the recruiting world anyhow. So you kind of have to do the old-fashioned way of really what we call hat hunting, right? Is you go out and you hat hunt individuals. Technology has helped shape the recruiting landscape quite a bit, right? For instance, right, LinkedIn makes it a lot easier to connect with candidates, right? Even like down to ATSs, right, applicant tracking systems, where you can actually have a portal to store your candidates, and even to companies like yours, Instahyre, where you actually supply companies like ours with an active pipeline of candidates that we can readily tap into and move the process along a lot quicker. So the future outlook for the talent landscape for me is only going to get better as technology advances.
Great. Thank you for the kind words, Luan. So let's move on to the next part. So you've seen that 70% of the HR leaders has been saying that managing a multi-generational workforce is a big challenge for them. So have you seen this being an issue at any of your companies? And if so how does it affect the overall talent acquisition strategy which you make for the multi-generational workforce? Sorry.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say that this has been an issue per se. I would say that as a company, you can have to evolve with the time, and every stage of the company is different, and every so often, right, the landscape changes. You just have to adapt to the new landscape and come up with new strategies. For example, right, the multi-generational workforce is a must, right? You have to have individuals been there and done that for a number of years, right? But at the same time, you need a diversity of thoughts for individuals who might have just graduated from a college to come in and actually challenge the way that we have been doing things for a number of years and finding ways to improve, right? So one of the things that we have done in terms of a strategy, a recruiting strategy in terms of multi-generational workforce, is diversity of thought. You have to have a diversity program where that you have to have different individuals to make up your entire workforce and challenge you in a way for you to advance as a company. We have a very strong university recruitment program for that matter, because we believe in the fact that we need to get individuals who come in with a fresh pair of eyes to show us to get done, right? But at the same time, balancing that out with individuals who also have a number of years of experience as well, right? So what we normally would do is we normally would team them up so that that they would be able to mentor new people coming in, right? To eventually create the next wave of leaders for the company.
Okay, so this brings along like plethora of skills and plethora of ideas, like different people from multi-generation workforce coming in with their ideas. That also helps you, right, to build more products, like different mindsets, different diversities, right?
Correct. Yeah. So when people talk about diversity, they typically think about men versus women in the workforce. We go beyond that. We go beyond the diversity of thought, diversity of ideas, diversity of opinion.
Okay, so on diversity, like India has not been a major topic on diversity, but now we are seeing most of the customers, they're beginning to focus on diversity. Like even mid-sized startups, also diversity is one of the buzzwords in the thing. Like how does diversity plan a role in the hiring strategy at a Silicon Valley company? So for example, do you try to have like certain targets in mind, like different demographics for you want?
Yeah, social diversity plays a very big role in Silicon Valley. And just to be clear, certain companies do diversity a little differently. At Harness, we believe in diversity. Like I said, it goes beyond just gender, men versus women, right? About diversity of thought, but also diversity of different backgrounds.
Okay.
Right. So one of the things that we believe in is always funnel and build a pipeline with a diverse pool of candidates and make the best person win. That's how diversity should be thought of, is that you have enough diverse candidates in the pipeline and the best person always will win.
Okay. So I have one questions coming in from one of our viewers. One very important question for talent acquisition managers and leaders, of course, is the recruitment budget. Right.
Yeah.
So how do you work out the recruitment budget with the company management?
That's a great question. I think this is an item that is generally overlooked.
Yes.
Right? Because people will start a recruiting function, and then whatever is available to be thrown at them, that's what they get. I challenged that at AppDynamics day one when I walked in there. To have a budget is important, but how do you go about actually defining a budget? Okay, so I'll give you an easy way of breaking it down in terms of creating your budget. So your budget consists of a few different buckets. Number one, salary for all of your employees within the recruiting team. Number two, tools and systems, right? The must-haves. For example, LinkedIn. If you have to have a budget created to use a company like Instahyre, you need to build that in. If you don't have the budget today, build it for next year. By the way, this is a good time to do it because the year end is coming. You do your planning. You can ask for it now that you can start using it in 2019. And the third is branding. Believe it or not, branding takes money, right? So build that branding piece, right? For instance, if you want to promote your company on LinkedIn or Glassdoor, anywhere else, where the regional market is, build that in, right? Always ask for, I would say, 10% above what you're looking for, and then settle for the 100% that you really need, right? And then the fourth item that you should be also considering would be training for your team.
Okay.
Training is important. You can do all the training as a manager as you want, but I think it's always good to send your recruiters to different seminars or conferences where they can pick up, new technologies or whatever the latest recruiting trends are out there. My only ask is every time someone goes to a seminar, their job is to bring back useful information that they can teach the whole entire team. Okay. And that's how you get the return on your investment in terms of sending someone somewhere.
Okay. So I have one more question on the budget thing. How should the budget for different aspects of recruitment evolve as a company grows from like a small startup to growth stage to final enterprise?
Yeah. So first and foremost, your question touches on the capacity model.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by capacity model is if the company is growing, that means that the headcount will be growing. That means that your recruiting team should be growing. So when I do my capacity planning, remember earlier on, I also talked about every recruiter on the team, on every segment of the team, has a number to hit on a monthly, quarterly, and yearly basis. The same applies. If the company has 100 headcount,
Mm-hmm.
if your capacity model of the current team that you have only reaches 75, you know that there's a 25 headcount shortage,
Mm-hmm.
right? Don't increase your team. So do your math. If it means that another 25 hires, you need 3 more recruiters for the year, that's worked into your budget. And again, the four buckets I talked about, number one is actually salary, which is your headcount.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, Luan, I have one more question from the audience. How do you scale the recruitment team? And in the sense that how large should the team be? What should the various roles? And what will the team be at different points? How you increase the team size? So I think you have already touched upon that, like diversity, like management of all the team, giving them different tasks. So can you just touch upon this also, how you scale the recruitment team?
Yep. So again, I think this is one of the questions or challenges that a lot of recruiting leaders run into, is the question of how big should I grow my team, right? Well, I'm here to tell you, it's the science behind recruiting, right? It's not an art. An art is when you know innately that you were born with this special quality that you can actually get on the phone and talk to people and recruit them into the company. But the science behind recruiting is, how do you determine what works and what doesn't work and what do you need, right? It goes back to the headcount planning, right? In order to grow a team, a certain number of recruiters, all you have to do is go back to your headcount plan. Now, when we talk about headcount plan, we talk about, again, 3 different budgets. The first 3 different buckets. One has already been approved by the company in terms of number of headcount. The second part is replacement headcount. The third part is out of budget headcount. So let me recap. A headcount plan consists of 3 different buckets. Okay. What's approved already by the company, the replacement headcount, and number 3, out of budget headcount. Because as you know, companies grow and they always add additional headcount that they weren't planning on adding, right? So those are the 3. Again, do your math. Work your math backwards. How many recruiters does it take to hire, say, 25 engineers for a year, right? And you have to do your capacity modeling in a way, you know, that recruiting for an engineer is a lot harder, for example, than to recruit for a sales individual, right? So just keep in mind that the number of hires per recruiter will change from one group to the next. G&A will be different from engineering hiring to marketing recruiting, right? So figure that out, and then you add it up at the end of the day. If it matches up to 100 headcount, the total headcount that you have within the 3 buckets, then you're set, and that's what you should go and ask for in terms of your budget.
Okay, thank you.
And by the way, what I want to offer to is, I know this has been a very hot topic because a lot of us weren't taught when we got into recruiting how we should think about building out our team. I learned it because I was working at a startup where I have to account for every penny that I spend. So I had to come up with a capacity modeling. So if anyone who has questions around that, I'm more than happy to follow up with you. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I can walk you through all of that.
So that's about it, Luan. So we have a lot more questions. I will send you across all these questions. You can answer them accordingly. Okay. The key questions keep coming in. And thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. And we have got a great session with lots of questions answered, and people have got the bird's eye view of what Silicon Valley startups look like and how they recruit, how they retain talent, how they engage talent. And enjoy your stay in India. And namaste from the entire Instahyre team. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for hosting me. I really appreciate the opportunity to to be a part of this webinar. I apologize if I came across a little kind of not all together because I landed last night at 3 a.m. in the morning. So still very looking to the time. But thank you everyone on the phone for joining us today. I appreciate again your time and your curiosity about learning about the recruiting industry.
Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Luan. Thank you, Chandru, for arranging all this. And we'd love to have Harness again for our next webinar sessions also. And
great. And then before we sign off, I just want to introduce my team member Chandru as well. Who's leading our India operation for Harness. So again, thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.